So let's turn to the subject of today. Agriculture for improved maternal and child nutrition. Question mark, you said. And I heard also about that question mark. Well, the point is, and it was recently mentioned, if we are to respond to the Sustainable Development Goals as being agreed a month ago in New York, and the goal to end hunger, achieve food security and improved nutrition within the next 15 years, I can tell you there is a job to be done, individually and collectively, if we want to reach that particular group here. We will need a global food security, absolute necessary, but not good enough in itself. Because we need to secure people about the nutrients they want and need. That's about nutrition security. So what you see is that food security is a means to achieve nutrition security, which is and should be the absolute goal, in that order. So if you put people central, you build then from nutrition actually back to agriculture, and not the other way around. So that is important. So how do we link that? And I dealt that partly within Dutch government in how you link those two issues. It's not easy. We're struggling with that. How do you connect agriculture, food, nutrition, health? How do you build that connection here? What works? What are the opportunities here? Marie is here to set the scene because she has some of the answers. In the past, I always felt I have so many answers, I'm waiting for the questions, but now when you get older, I'm not sure where you are, but I have to have more questions nowadays. It's just, how did it work? So Marie, what are the line of thought in connecting agriculture and nutrition? What may work, what doesn't work, in particular in vulnerable groups like women and children?
I just wanted to start with as simplified as possible diagram that shows how agriculture relates to nutrition. And the main point here is that there are several pathways. We've made that simple on this graph. Okay, so what I have highlighted here is that globally, of course, we all know, it sounds so obvious that agriculture is important for producing food. It produces the quantity of food, hopefully, and the quality of food that we need, that the world needs. We have all heard about feeding 9 billion people by 2025 or something. And of course, this always focuses on calories. We need enough calories to feed people. We also need more than calories and enough of the right amounts of food. So one of the pathways, of course, by which the most obvious one, agriculture produces food, which in turn improves people's food security and can improve their nutrition. Other pathways are that, of course, people also who work in agriculture earn income. There's the largest proportion of the poor work in farming, so they derive their livelihood, their income, and often their food supply from growing their own food. So so agriculture is important for their income, and where markets don't work very well, it's also important for their own food availability, food security at the household level, because they may have nowhere to sell this food, and there may be nothing else to buy either. So for many small farmers, it's still a subsistence issue. And then, of course, if you have better household availability of food, you hope that everybody has a better diet, including mothers and children. But all of those links are not always working as they're supposed to. I have that now.
Before you go on, if you look at this slide here, where do I put markets? Because you expect, of course, if there is more production, you can store.
And
it will go
sell.
from store to market,
exactly.
from market to consumers,
yes.
of course. How does it sit in here?
Well, you have the production, and you either sell it and get income, so that's where the market is. There's a market to sell, and it goes to income. You get income. And then with this income, you also go to the market and buy what you need for your family. So, so the focus of some small farmers, for example, on growing 1 or 2 crops is that in theory they will sell some of it. They may keep some, they usually do. They will sell some of it and they will keep some of it, but they need to buy the other foods they need. So as I said, this was simplified, emphasizing what are the points where we can leverage agriculture to make it more so-called nutrition sensitive, or to make it have a greater impact on nutrition. And the thing that didn't fit in this slide and has a slide of its own is where women fit in all of this, and where all the gender relations and gender issues lie. Women and their empowerment, their health and their nutrition are a critical pathway by which agriculture can improve nutrition. What I also want to say is that in the past, we have seen that agriculture didn't really improve nutrition very much, because if it had, we wouldn't have so much malnutrition as we have now. We wouldn't have most of the small farmers have malnourished children. So agriculture is not necessarily directly linked to better nutrition. One of the bottlenecks, there are several bottlenecks, but one of the main bottlenecks has been the role of women in agriculture. If women are empowered, we have evidence that they tend to invest resources more effectively in the education, the health and the nutrition of their children than men do. And so in agriculture, they used to work in agriculture, but they were not empowered. They were not making any of the decisions, and they didn't have control over the income that they generated. So now we're trying to make sure that the 60% of women who work in agriculture in sub-Saharan Africa, for example, are more empowered through different types of interventions, and they are educated and learn how to use the resources they have for the health and nutrition of their children.
So women need to be more empowered.
Yes.
What does that mean?
It means
where
that
do they need to be empowered, and how would you see that?
Yeah.
And have you a background to see if you empower women in this particular field,
does it
this
work?
will then result in that particular area?
Yes.
Second question is, that's all
questions.
fine here, but
it's too many questions.
My second question, Frans Kok, of course, is interested in science, because he's a scientist. He wants to know, of course, is what science would you need, actually, if you look also to these women here, to ensure that she, is maybe question 4, that she can actually feed their families better tomorrow. Because at the end of the day, it's their children who define the future of their society tomorrow. So you need to have an early start in better nutrition. So how would it play out?
Yeah, and implying that what I've said so far was not science, right? And I got stuck on that a little bit.
I'm sure Frans will come back to me and said, where's the science policy?
Well, he can come to me. Okay, what was the first question again? Okay, so how do we do this?
Empowering women.
Yes, no,
where and how?
Yes. So I was hinting at the fact that using agriculture as a place to empower women was a very good start, because 60% or more even of women, we have these statistics for sub-Saharan Africa, we don't have them for the world, but so many women work in agriculture, in food production, in food processing, in food-related livelihood activities. So several people have thought about it, and there's a lot of people that will certainly feel that homestead food production systems and home gardens and all that are not science, but they exist, they're there. Lots of NGOs have homestead food production systems, programs that are targeting large proportions of the population, and they're targeting the poorest of the poor who just do not have access to the economic growth and all the other large economic growth activities in agriculture that may be happening. So they have taken upon themselves to make these programs more targeted to women. So they provide inputs, training, education. They empower women through a whole set of activities. And they also don't just empower women in isolation. They also do some community mobilization and some I cannot pronounce this word, sensitization of
Sensitization.
men as well. Because if you only empower women, and we've seen that in conditional cash transfer programs, for example, you give the money to the woman, and the man takes the money, or the man beats the wife, or the man has bad behaviors because all of a sudden the woman has money and wants to use it. And so we have to not just target women and give them the inputs. We also have to work with the men and with the society in general and change social norms. And we have done research that shows that it really actually happens. In Burkina Faso, for example, there was no notion that women could actually own agriculture assets before a program that Helen Keller implemented in Burkina Faso was doing all of this education that women can own assets, they can actually own agricultural land, why not? And at the end of this project, we can see the difference in the communities where the perceptions have changed. There's a change in social norms, and it's a long process, and it doesn't look like science, but it sure is very complex, and it requires working directly with the communities.
But of course, yeah, it starts that women need to own land. Yeah, and then they need to have, of course, their input to gather that land, find markets. But you find most of these assets are not fit the culture of where women grow up. I mean, it's unusual that women own land. I mean, if they go to the bank, they have less loans, so they pay a higher interest rate than others. How do you change? Because this is a fundamental change of the culture in these countries. I mean, how do you do that?
Yes. The way we have worked on it, and we're not the program implementers, obviously, we are the research institute that analyzes how these processes work or don't work and where are the bottlenecks. And we are where we are in terms of working at the community level and with men as well, because originally everybody was making the mistake of just focusing on women and focusing on targeting women only, and then gradually seeing that there were negative consequences. For example, if you give a cow to a woman and do not do anything else than give the cow or the animals to the women, the men will take them over. They will get the money from the income of selling the milk or selling the animals. And so this can be prevented, but we made those mistakes, or the program implementers did make these mistakes. We analyzed them, we studied these programs, and now we have the information on where there are bottlenecks.
The last question, of course, we move to a broader debate, is to what is, in your view, the biggest science gap we have in connecting agriculture and nutrition? Where do we need to know most of it? It's a gap, you say, we need to, if we don't fix that here, can't build a connection. What is it?
And I'm not sure I want to answer the specific science gap, but where I think we have the biggest gap, or where I think we have the biggest dream, is to think that agriculture will improve nutrition by itself, or agriculture will improve the nutrition of children under 2. It's become a very big, I think, mistake from some donors, for example, and from a lot of people working in agriculture, that all they want is to respond to the problem we've had, that we've said, look, you've done agriculture all your life, the children's malnutrition has not reduced. So you have to make agriculture more nutrition sensitive, and they don't know how to make it more nutrition sensitive, which is what we are trying to do, to educate on how to make agriculture more nutrition sensitive and at what levels along the pathway you can leverage. But even then, my perception is that you can improve the nutrition of women, of adolescent girls, of other household members a lot more than the nutrition of young children. But unfortunately, people are measuring stunting. So they're saying, oh, we have this big agriculture development program, we'll measure stunting. They will have no impact. And they will be very disappointed. But they should target more working with the women, improving, we just talked about empowerment, but we also need to improve women's health and nutrition. They eat food. Women eat a lot more food than the young child who has special needs. And so there's a lot more possibility that we can improve the nutrition of women in that 1,000 days, and the nutrition of young children.
IFPRI brings a lot to the table. Are you hopeful?
About what? About agriculture improving nutrition?
About
in life?
agriculture
Yeah.
and nutrition in such a way that more people are better nourished.
Yes, yes, I think, and we'll
So
probably
the Sustainable Development Goal,
we probably
the
will
first
come
one,
to that.
we will be able to meet it in 2030.
Yes, but not with agriculture alone, and we can come back to that topic.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you very much indeed. Can I ask two other members?